Hello everyone, Deanna here, and in today's video we're going to go through the top 5 best and worst reads of 2022. So go ahead, sit tight, relax, and let's get into it. So we're going to start with the top 5 reads that I enjoyed in 2022. So these are my favorite reads of the year, and we're going to go starting from the 5th to the number 1 spot. Number 5 is, you can see that, is House Witch. So this is a book that I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed it. It was a fantasy, pretty high fantasy, but it was just written in such a fun way. It had a main character that was a male character who was our main love interest that we followed as well, because it had a bit of romance in it. It had him trying to deal with his secret of being a house witch and how that played out in his role as the cook within the new kingdom that he moves to, and just a lot of fun characters. And honestly, it just was such a heartwarming story in so many ways. It made me always feel so cozy and comforted that I just really enjoyed it. So it is getting my number 5 top 5 books of 2022. Next we have number 4, The Woman in the White Kimono. So this one was a book club read, and I believe it was for September, might have been August book club read. And this was a book where it had a dual point of view. It had a bit of like the back and forth between the past and the present, and it took us on a journey of a woman trying to figure out her father's secret, while also at the same time it was a young adult woman who is living in Japan in the 1950s and falls in love with an American soldier, and essentially how that kind of plays out. So it was definitely an emotional read. It definitely captivated me. I think the writing was really well done. I was gripped by both storylines, which sometimes when you're going back and forth, sometimes I'm like, oh, get back to the other storyline, whereas this one I was actually interested in both because I wanted to know how it all connected, because it was all very well done and how well it came together, and I just wanted to find out more. And oh my god, did this book make me sob. It made me learn things that I didn't know about. It was something that helped me learn what happened to some of the Japanese women in the 1950s that I was just very ignorant to. And so in that, it was a really great learning experience, while also being such a phenomenal read and such a phenomenally written book. So I really enjoyed it, and that is why it is my number 4 spot. Alright, number 3, we've got Circe. So this one, I listened to this one on audiobook, and oh, it was in August. I do remember this very much, that it was just such a great book. I had already read Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and that one I enjoyed, but I didn't get quite as much of the hype as it was proclaimed to be. I enjoyed it, but it was slow going sometimes for me, where Circe, I swear to goodness, it was just like boom, boom, boom from start to finish. And I think I just connected so much more with the character of Circe and some of the struggles that she went through, you know, being outcast and the things that she had to put up with on that island, with some of the men that came into that island and how they treated her. And oh, it just, my heart, and how much she loved her child. And oh, there's just so much about Circe that was just so good, and it was so wonderfully written, and I really enjoyed listening to it on audiobook, that it honestly was one of my favorite reads, and that is why it's number 3 on my list, because I just loved it so much. Just wonderfully written, just a great story. Number 2, I have I'm Glad My Mom Died. This one I'm actually a little surprised I had heard a lot of the hype. I had seen it do its, media circle of it being on talk shows and so many people talking about it, and Jeanette McCurdy promoting it as well. And I was just captivated by it so much. I think she was so honest in her telling of it. I listened to this one again by audiobook, and she did such a great job at really just pulling that emotion. There were a few times I think she even choked up on the audiobook that just really had me just really choking up as well. She did a fantastic job at telling her story, and it just opened up my eyes so much to some of what I hadn't realized that Jeanette struggled with. There were so many different topics she touched on throughout the course of her memoir, and how it all related to things her mom did or things her mom instilled in her, and how she's trying to reconcile with that and deal with that and come to terms and be okay with it all. So it was just quite an emotional read as well. A lot of emotions going on with these books. Might be telling for my #1 book as well, because clearly if it really gets me and invokes strong emotion in me, then I'm just really going to enjoy it and remember it, and it's going to sit with me. Because remember, we don't always remember what people say, but we remember how they make you feel, and these books definitely made me feel. So I really enjoyed I'm Glad My Mom Died. And the #1 spot for my top 5 books in 2022, the best book that I read in 2022, or my favorite book, was, drumroll, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This one was just fantastic. I was not expecting it. There was so much hype about this book. Then when I see hype about a book, I get very wary. I get very like, is it really though? Is it? And it always sets my expectations for it so high, because I'm like, can you meet this expectation? Are you really as great? And it almost makes me sometimes look at them a little more critically and harsher. But I was not expecting where this book was going to go. Perhaps, that was just my own ignorance to it all. But I was so blown away by the way it was done. The audiobook is fantastic. So I highly recommend listening to it on audiobook, because the way that the narrators went back and forth, we had a certain narrator for the present, and then we had a certain narrator kind of telling us Evelyn's story as she's going through, and I think that just really helped kind of separate that and just really made the character come alive. There were times when I honestly wanted to almost Google Evelyn Hugo, because she almost felt so real to me with some of the things that she was going through and some of the things that were happening within her Hollywood life. So I was just like, oh, what about this? Can I search this? And I was like, wait, she's not a real person. This isn't a memoir I'm listening to. This is a fictional book. But that was just how real it felt sometimes. And I think that's just really a testament to the phenomenal writing of Taylor Reed Jenkins, I believe it is. But to Taylor's writing and just how well she did. And honestly, I wasn't expecting how much this book would absolutely destroy me and just break me. There were a few scenes where I was just so devastated, and honestly, one of the scenes, without spoiling too much, literally like brought me to my knees, like sobbing. I don't think I've ever sobbed so much at a book. It was just so heart-wrenching and made me so upset, but it was because of how much it just, like, I could feel it, and wow, it was definitely something. So to me, that clearly makes this book a winner, because honestly, as I said, clearly I have something with having my heart absolutely destroyed, because each of these books in some way really made my heart destroyed. I mean, it's almost, I almost needed this as like a comfort one, because this didn't make me my heart so broken, but each one of these in its own special way kind of just evoked so much emotion in me that it was kind of phenomenal reading them. So this is my top 5 best reads of 2022. So let's get into my worst reads of 2022. Okay, we've got my worst reads of 2022. So let's go ahead and get into it through it. So number 5, my least favorite book that I read in 2022 was The Secret Stealers. So this is one that I actually had to DNF. I recently DNF'd it. So it's pretty fresh in my memory. It was one about a World War II spy she's a female who's a widow, and she ends up working as a spy in the World War II, and she gets essentially deployed to France to work and act as a French woman, and she is supposed to be like right there doing spy work, like right on the field in occupied Germany occupied France. And to me, it just felt so inauthentic sometimes, because of how careless the main character is and how much she just talks about her work that she's doing all over I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little too biased, but when you are dealing with such sensitive information and you are dealing with something in such a very high stakes environment where you have literally the repercussions could be death, I mean, it's just astonishing how absolutely ridiculous she is in so many ways. And we're supposed to see her as this very intelligent woman, and she's supposed to be like so, you know, smart and so knowledgeable, but yet she just talks about all of her experiences just openly in bars and restaurants, like just telling major important events to friends and things like that. And it's just like, no, you wouldn't compromise your missions that much. You would not be telling us. I mean, there are people that were in World War II as spies that we probably don't even know of to this day, because they had such secrecy about their identities, and they had to do that or else they were going to be unalived. So to have it so blatantly ignored, and just some of the things, and there was a scene where finally she ends up having someone even recognize her and point her out in front of the German soldiers, and to me, I just was like, no, I can't anymore. I can't. The book was kind of fun in some ways, but it's just, I cannot dispel my disbelief that much. I cannot live in this fantasy world when it comes to World War II, and it was such a high stakes war and so much was going on that I couldn't. So number 5, I ranted about that enough. It is Secret Stealers for me. So number 4, we've got It Ends With Us. So I kind of went like back and forth on this one, because to me, I was like, is there another book? But then I kept thinking about it, and I was like, this one, honestly, it was I DNF'd this one, I did, but I was very, very close to DNFing this one. I almost did, and I think I only finished it because I'd heard so much about it, and I wanted to see, well, what are people loving so much about this book? And that's what pushed me through to finish it. I have a video where I even talk about it, because honestly, I was enraged so much reading this book. And some people might love that. Some people might be like, yes, it sparked some emotion. I mean, clearly with my top 5 best reads, clearly I love having emotion evoked, but it needs to be the right kind of emotion to me. It doesn't need to be an emotion where I am literally hating characters that are supposed to kind of be loved. Like, I couldn't. I mean, sometimes I felt for the main character, and she had some traits that I really appreciated, but I just overall, reflecting on this book, I hated it, and I was grateful for the type of ending. I think that's the only thing that really saved this book, was that there was a better resolution in my eyes. But honestly, I couldn't with it. I couldn't. So it's number 4. Number 3, I've got Rose Petal Summer. Honestly, to me, it was just a worst read because I just wasn't interested in it. I found the characters just kind of dull, I think. This premise was that she had met someone, like spent like a little bit of time with him, and then like quote unquote loved him, but then didn't see him for 20 years, and then she ends up working for his father and rekindling their romance, but like it doesn't actually, because we never actually see them have all this like romance that much. It's like she harbored this great love for him after like just like a brief meeting practically. Like they just met before they went on their separate ways in like a trip or something. I can't quite remember because it was just kind of just not that impactful for me, and it was just kind of like blah, and I really just thought that the romance between them was forced, and there was other characters that were just like annoying, and honestly it was just too much for me, and I just didn't enjoy it. So that was Rose Petal Summer. And then in second place, a very similar vibe, was Meet Me at Beachcomber Bay. And honestly, I talk about it in my video about these books, where I almost got this one and this one confused because the beginning is so similar, because it's these main character women who meet this man, and it's like a kind of meet cute in like traveling or something, but then they go their separate ways. So I kind of got confused because their beginnings were so similar. And what was kind of funny is I think these authors, one of them like referenced the other one or something in like her love for the book or something. I don't know. I found it really funny how similar the stories were. And Meet Me at Beachcomber Bay, I just did not like the two like main characters. They were sisters, and I didn't even like the guy that they were fighting over either. He was kind of bland, kind of just like there. And there was actually some side characters that I liked a lot more and would have loved the story to be more centered around them instead of who it was centered around. So there were times when it like really bugged me and I almost DNF'd it. And in some ways I kind of wish I had, because it really wasn't the best for me. Like, I just did not enjoy this book. I didn't. So these are all ones that like honestly I could have just DNF'd and just been gone without my day and been happy. The only one that might have bugged me was Ends With Us because of how hyped it is, but honestly I would have been better just not reading any of them. But that leaves me for the number 1 worst book of 2022 that I dislike, and that was The Arrangement. And honestly, this one, I don't even think I read it in 2022, but I know I wrote about it in this journal, in this reading journal. I had put it in here because I think I read it at some point for a book club book, and it was one of our book club reads. And honestly, I wrote, when I just put in my notes in this journal about it, it re-invoked that like just frustration with the book. It's about a young college student who has horrible roommates for one thing, and she is broke. She gets fired from her job, I believe, and she ends up needing money to pay her rent, pay her college, all that stuff, and she ends up having a fellow classmate who has sugar daddies. So this main character thinks, oh well, I can just jump into that and just be a sugar baby and live that kind of life. And she goes on that path, but then she ends up meeting a man, and it's like the first one she ever met, and she quote unquote falls in love with him. But he is terrible, he's awful, just yucky. And then just her, the way she's like, the whole thing I think just really infuriated me, because I think at the time of reading too, there was some big things going on in the news about kind of sex work and stuff like that, and so it kind of evoked this like just frustration on the way that this was written. It was written with such a derogatory way towards sex work, and maybe that was the purpose of the book, maybe that was Robin's purpose of writing it, but to me it just infuriated me. And then it just frustrated me, some of the story and things that were happening, that I just remember just absolutely hating this book. That's all I remember. It's all that I like stay with me, is that I just did not enjoy the book, did not enjoy where it went, how it happened. I mean, other people would, I think, enjoy it, because there were some people in our book club group that really did enjoy it. So it's really just my personal opinion. I just did not enjoy it, and I think mine is tied to probably just those feelings and some of that I felt, just how it was portrayed. I felt like it was someone who never actually has done it, which clearly, you know, it's gonna happen. People are gonna write about things. They don't have to experience every single thing, but I feel like it was someone who just didn't know enough about the arrangements and things like that, and just came with like, there was a bit of, to me, and maybe I'm just taking this the wrong way, but I felt like there was a bit of snobbery and a bit of like just disdain for that lifestyle, and a real way of like just this look at it in such like just such a ridiculous way of like thinking that it's not going to impact people. And I think some of the things that happened too just really bugged me, like some of the character things and some of the side plots that were going on, and then how they treated this main character. It just was like so awful. It was kind of like it was supposed to be a bit of like the letter A or something. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but where they pretty much like declare her like, you know, a tramp, and she's vilified pretty much. That's what it felt like. But it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm ignorant in thinking that it wouldn't quite be like that in all settings in, you know, the present. Maybe I was just ignorant in that thought of myself, but I just feel like it was looked on in such a horrible thing, when sometimes it's not as much. And yeah, there's a whole thing that you could go into about that, but to me, I didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy the book. I found it just frustrating, and that was not an enjoyable thing to remember in 2022, going back down memory lane. So it made the list because I just have to rant about how much I did not like it. So those are my least favorites and my favorites. So there we are. My list of top 5 best and worst reads. That is where it stands. Let me know what your best and worst reads are of 2022. I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourselves, and you will see me next time. Bye!